and welcome to another Dawn and Julia Create. So we are doing a thrift store makeover. I think that's the most searchable term for it. We don't have thrift stores in the UK. We have charity shops. And I also have an abundance of old toys. Things that I have admired of my daughters for many years, thinking that would make a great mixed media project. But obviously she was playing with them, so I couldn't steal them because that would just be rude. So instead I've waited for her to grow out of them. We are now wearing proper makeup, so we don't need princess party makeup. So this is what I'm going to be altering today. I'm not quite sure. I mean, let's flip and discuss. So this is the makeup set, and it comes out like this. Now, part of me thinks that would be really cool to make over all of it. And have it open like that. But part of me also thinks that that on its own could make a cool shadow box, and this on its own could make a cool mixed media project. So I'm really torn as to what to do. I think I'm slightly more inclined to do it as two separate pieces because I do have an idea of what I want to do with this. And as I said, this could be decorated later with little JMC characters in it. And I think it would be quite good to be able to see it. So I am going to attempt to pull this apart. So pulling this apart proved to be slightly more difficult than I anticipated. Yeah, firstly I needed to unscrew these hinge type things. I didn't have a screwdriver big enough, so I had to rake around my husband's DIY stuff to try and find this little contraption thing. Anyway, I managed to finally get these hinges unscrewed and get it detached from the main body. But then we were still left with those big hinges, which I sort of removed with a Stanley knife. Maybe not the best, safest way of doing it, but hey, we got there. But it did mean that the base was sort of wibbly wobbly. It wasn't going to stand up on its own. So I decided to pull out some air dry clay. While I was in there, I noticed that I had things like texture plates and all sorts of things that I'd forgotten about. Kezia was really into Play-Doh when she was about 2 or 3, and literally every single day it's what she wanted to do, Play-Doh, which was fine, but she wanted me to do it with her. So I ended up buying a few bits and pieces, and I used to make a lot of paper clay things because essentially we were both sort of sat doing the same thing. So yeah, I discovered some of these textured plates which I thought would work really well on this castle. I have to say, this castle started off with me thinking that I was just going to paint it with white gesso and sort of colour in all the elements in. It sort of took a life of its own, and we went in a completely different direction, as we will see. So this is a wood texture plate. I've just put a very thin layer of the air dry clay down. I've never worked with air dry clay before. It's a new phenomenon for me. I'm used to working with paper clay, so yeah, I don't particularly have any idea what I'm doing. Apparently you score your clay like I'm doing there and stick it with water to add bits to it. I've never done this before, but I have watched people like Mariah Elizabeth, Nerdy Crafter, Ashley Monet, Cassie Crafts. I've watched quite a few people that play with clay, and that's what they do, so I just copied them. I've now taken a little bit of extra clay with this sort of stone pattern, and I'm sort of adding it to various parts of the castle. I've not put it across because the actual castle itself has little floral details and it's got little swags and little vines, and so I still wanted to keep some of that, but I just wanted to make it a little bit more interesting. So using the rule of threes, I used this sort of that stone part in 3 different places, and I got a great big hunk of clay, as you can see me trying to massage that, and I'm going to try and make a base for the castle to sit on. So I just sort of created a big sausage and rolled it out, and once I had done that, I just sort of stuck the castle into it. It wasn't quite enough to make it nice and solid, so I then had to wrap the clay up onto the castle itself to try and make a base, which looked a complete mess. So then I sort of ran with the fact that it looked a mess, and I got little balls of clay and bits of chunks of clay and just sort of rammed it all together, believing that it looked
would look a little bit like a rock face. This is me scoring my clay again, pretending like I know what I'm doing. Sort of mashing it all together. And yeah, until I got it so it looked like something. Now, air dry clay takes about 3 days to dry. It took us about 3 days to get to this stage. I'm very amused by this mirror. Look, we're going to have a little wave. Hello. And I went black. Not what I'd intended to do, but I decided that it would look better black for some reason, as opposed to pulling out all of that detail. I didn't think it was going to work as well. I also thought it was going to take an age. And just with the direction it went in with the stonework and everything, I went black. Dawn's not going to guess that. Dawn, I reckon, is going to say that I'm going for an altered toy, because the options that I gave was alter a toy or a charity shop find. And she also knows that I challenged us to do that because I have squirreled away many of Kezia's toys, knowing that they would make a great mixed media project one day. So there's quite a few things that I have looked at longingly through her childhood. And now as she's gradually getting older and moving stuff, I'm sort of stealing it back. And I have a cupboard full of stuff. I reckon Dawn's going to suggest that I'm going to do a tree house, because I did put up a poll a while ago with various sort of garden houses, and the treehouse won, but I've never got around to doing it. But believe me, that is a big, big, big project. So yeah, we went for the castle instead. Now here you're going to see me make a gargantuous, is that a word? A very big, big mistake. I am using watercolours, and the reason I decided to use watercolours is, although I had planned to dry brush with acrylics, the paint sits on top, whereas doing this technique the paint would go into the grooves, so I thought it would give a little bit of a pearlescent image in the grooves. But I've just spent 3 days drying air dry clay, and I've just sprayed water all over it. Not clever. Really not clever. I just honestly can't believe I was that stupid. In a mad panic, when I realised what I'd done, I blasted it with the heat gun. It did seem to revive it. So we've just going to ignore the fact that we've made that mistake and just move straight on to the dry brushing. For the dry brushing, I am using a combination. That dark blue that you see me using there was Imagination Crafts. The bright one that's currently on my brush, that is Pebeo, and the gold is Pebeo as well. And I'm just going to dry brush a whole load of that on. I love this stage. You just sort of build up lots of layers. Now, I don't know what Dawn's going to choose. I reckon she's probably had to go for a charity shop find, because her girls are a little bit older than Kezia, and I'm not sure if she will have squirreled any of their old toys away. So I'm going to call it that she's done a charity shop makeover. I think she'll most likely go black and metallic, a bit like this. And she's going to guess that I am going to do a tree house and go white gesso. And she's going to be wrong. But I'm not deliberately doing something different just to make sure that Dawn's wrong, because Dawn likes to do that to me. She's done that in the past. But no, I genuinely, the project told me what it wanted. I know that sounds daft. Quite often when I start a project, I start off with a rough idea. So the rough idea was to do a princess castle, and then it sort of takes a mind of its own. And this project definitely took a mind of its own. Here I am using Hoo paint markers. I've still not done a review on these, and to be honest, because I've been waiting so long to get this review done, I've been using them quite a lot, and so I have a lot more information and things I'd like to share. I don't know that I particularly like these markers for colouring in, but for mixed media, awesome. They're my new favourite thing for mixed media. Acrylic markers, these fine nibs, and the brush markers of the Artes ones, brilliant. I loved the way this looked because it really brought out the detail, but it just looked very shiny and brassy in comparison to all the very delicate dry brushing. So I'm dry brushing over the bit that I had just done with black to knock it all back so it had the sort of same level of shininess. Now I decided that it would be really cool to have a dragon guarding the castle. So we still have a couple of these stamps left. These are the limited edition stamps that we brought out in January. We've only brought out one limited edition set this year. I had intended to do 4, but we've still only done 1. There's a handful of these sleeping ones left, like 3 I think. So because I want to go black and iridescent, I am using clear embossing powder. So you can just see that change now. It sort of looks like it's disappearing, but it just occasionally catches the light, and you can see that there is actually embossed detail there. That's great because it allows me to have the black line, and it's going to resist any sort of medium that I put on it. So we're still going to see the outline once we're done. I'm now using the Derwent metallic paints, and this time is a sensible time to use it. I am using it on cardstock and not on air dry clay. I still can't believe my stupidity over that one. It was, yeah, that was interesting. I'm not a big expert when it comes to, in fact, I'm not an expert at all. Watercolors I just play. I don't really know what I'm doing. I need to spend a lot more time learning watercolors. So I just sort of put a few layers down, and then I decided to pick up some highlights with my gel pens. I wanted to give a sort of really iridescent glowy feel. In come these paint markers again. Look how fine that nib is. I do like the fine nib of this for details, and I love the brush nib of the Artez ones as well. I kind of like them both, but for very different reasons, and they both annoy me for very different reasons as well. Yeah, but for this they are brilliant. I think acrylic markers are my new favourite thing for mixed media. I decided to pull in some of that gold into the watercolour to sort of make it a bit more blendy, and then I am grabbing a white gel pen just to make certain areas pop. And it seems no matter what colouring medium I use, when I did the one image 6 mediums video, all of the mediums ended up with white pen on top. I just really like that look of being able to add a complete pop of white as a highlight. It works really well and it's really effective, and it does take your images to another level no matter what medium you end up starting out with. I am then fussy cutting this little guy out. I didn't have his cloud because I want him sitting on the base layer of the castle. When you're fussy cutting, get a pair of scissors that you're comfortable with, use the full length of your blade and move the paper and not your scissors. If you want real tips for fussy cutting, check out our Dawn. She's amazing. Dawn can actually go faster than her brother Scan and Cut. She is quite the whiz when it comes to fussy cutting, I tell you. So once that's all fussy cut, we get it there, and then look, his tail doesn't fit on the base. I mean, it's fine when it's lying down, but when it's sat up, that is going to be a problem. So he had to have a little operation. I had to have his tail removed from his bottom. I don't believe it hurt. He didn't complain overly anyway. So now we have a tailless dragon. So I'm just sort of putting it in and changing the position of the tail so that it works for this particular make. Oh, I love how this turned out. I mean, I can't believe the difference of where it started to how it is now. It was one of those projects. This took me days. It was one of those ones that was really mindful. And there was one of the days I was having a really bad day as well, emotionally. And I was just painting and watching the paint go on slowly and adding the layers. And it was very therapeutic. Now, because I've gone iridescent and similar colours to the castle, he sort of disappears into the castle. So we need to do a little bit of shadowing just to allow him to pop. So I'm just getting the black gesso and completely all around him, I am just adding a little bit of a black shadow so that he pops out. And then once I had done that, I decided to add a little bit of shadowing to other areas in the castle as well. So for example, behind the door, at the edges of the turrets, underneath the windows, so you see just me going behind the turrets there. And it just helps to, those elements are 3D anyway and would have shadows behind them, so it just makes it pop even further and look even more dimensional than it currently is. So that was me there. Now, I bought these little dragon ornament things. So this is an ornament that I did when I was in Craig Tara on holiday last year, or was the year before, something like that, with Kezia. We had a great time, and I asked if I could buy a second one because I wanted to see what the difference would be when I was using my own supplies. And when I put the castle to dry, I suddenly saw the dragon and was like, oh, he could be guarding the castle as well. That would be really cool. So I've painted him up in black gesso. I have to say I originally went white, but then it was just looking too bright for how the finished castle project was. So I ended up going black. Now, for some reason, a lot of the footage of me painting up the little dragon got corrupted. The files got corrupted. I have no idea why. I don't know what was different about those files to all the other ones I'd recorded the exact same day, but those ones, for some reason, the computer no likey. So we have a little bit, we have me sort of putting the main base layer on, and we've got a little bit of those pink colours in the belly. I was trying to kind of go for very similar colours that we have in the castle. I have to say, again, it's quite a porous surface, so putting the gesso down, it really made a difference. And here we have a before and after. I'm very impressed with myself for this footage, I have to say. So we have the before and after. Which do you prefer? Princess, or all dark and mystical with a dragon guarding it? I hope you enjoyed this video. Please check out what our lovely Dawn has created. I will be over there right now watching. And if you enjoy mixed media, you might enjoy checking out this video or right here.